So, southern Spain, well known for stunning beaches and epic vistas, and of course Jamón. To us car guys, it's something different. It's the home of one of the first membership racetrack country clubs, if you could even call it that. Its design comes from other historic tracks. Even its name comes from a storied F1 driver. So, if AMG is going to throw in the engine from the GT into a C Class, perhaps it had a change or two, where else better to drive it than Circuit Ascari? Now, last week in the tech review of the C63S, I promised you car porn, and I am delivering it. Here is the naked engine of the C63S. It is a 4-liter V8 twin turbo, and notice the turbos are in the V here. I know you guys are probably thinking this is straight out of an AMG GT, and to some extent it is, but there are some changes. Like, for example, notice the intercoolers. They are in the front here rather than being off to the side in an AMG GT. And then in an AMG GT, this engine is a dry sump, a side oiler for your old race guys. This one is a wet sump, so you'll notice there's a significant difference in the oil pan. Basically, the engine is taller. Now, the output, there's two versions. There's a C63, there's a C63S. The C63 is 469 horsepower, which comes in at 5,500 RPM, and the torque is 479, which comes in at a very low 1,750. Now this one, this is the S, this one puts out 503 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque. And really important here, that 516 comes in also at 1,750 RPM. Now there are two other major differences here. Number one, an AMG GTS has basically adjustable engine mounts as well as a transmission mount. This, it's a fixed transmission mount, but it is an adjustable engine mount. And the big difference there is you want to balance between the stiffness of a car and a supple ride. So having an adjustable engine mount, so depending on whether you're in Sport Plus or in comfort mode, is really dictating how stiff the mount is. So the stiffer your car is, the faster you're going to go around a track, because a stiffer vehicle is one that can handle better. Get it? Okay, so we're going to talk about pulling power on a very technical track. This is my first time driving on this track, and can I just say, wow, it's like the greatest hits of so many tracks that I've been on. Actually, some I haven't. Silverstone I've been on, Brands Hatch I've been on, but there's some others that these guys have patterned after. It's incredible. And as we go around what looks like VIR, but I know they didn't carry VIR here, and look at this, it's almost like the carousel on Nürburgring. And this is where pulling power kind of comes in. You know, this is an incredibly technical track. What a wonderful track it is. And here, this is where we can use our 1,750 RPM where the torque comes in. Like, notice I'm going into this great hairpin turn here. Let's go down to second, come around, and then I'm really gonna just put my foot into it coming around here, and all of a sudden the car just spools up. You almost don't really feel the turbos. Now granted, we gotta pull some speed off, literally here, because again, very technical track. Go into another straight, and it's like the power is uninterrupted. Does it have the same like pulling power as the 577 horse car? No, it doesn't. But for the smaller, lighter car that this is, remember this is almost 3,700 pounds. It's a big difference from the 577 horsepower AMGs. And oh my God, look at this. Here, let's try this again. Coming out of here in second, go around this turn. Let's go. Wow, got even more of a technical bit here. People, this is an incredibly good day at the office. Oh my God. So let's just say, pulling power, check. Now, if you thought the car porn would be limited to just the engine, you thought wrong. The suspension. Now, in the tech review of this car, we talked about the suspension changes, but here we can actually see them. So take a look at this whole subframe assembly. This comes out of just a standard C Class. But what's different here, and it's specific to the Coupe, is this cross member here. So you only get this on the C63 and the C63S. But wait, there is more. Notice the steering knuckle here, the dampers, and even the upper here is specific just to the Coupe. Also the bearings too, and notice this one here. This is fitted with the carbon ceramic. Now granted, that is not specific just to the Coupe, but carbon ceramic brakes, we still got to talk about them. But wait, there's still even more. Now coming around to the back, believe it or not, there are more changes. You see this subframe here? Common logic would dictate just take
the rear suspension out of your box standard sedan and just beef it up, and there you have it for your hot rod. Not the case here. That is an entirely different design, and it's not just the design, it's the construction. They use a different type of high-strength steel to create this piece. But wait, there's more. Different bushings here, obviously different dampers. The upper is different, the bearings are different, and there's still one more piece that's different, but we have to see it over here. Now there's one last part about the suspension, and that's the differential. In the engine, we talked about the differing outputs between the C63 and the C63S. The same kind of logic applies here. So in the C63, this is completely mechanical, but in the C63S, it's an electronic, or there's an electronic aid to it. That is a motor here, that is a pinion that runs the gear, which runs the clutch. Now, unlike the RCF, Yaguchi-san did a version that basically the electronic part sort of drives the wheel. Here, that's not the case. It's this clutch that drives the differential, really aids the differential. So there's really two benefits. Obviously, reducing slip on the inside wheel coming out of a corner, but also this version basically increases traction from a standstill.
Okay, as we come around what I'm going to call the carousel here, one of the big benefits of being on such a technical track is you really get to understand the driving dynamics and some of the changes they made here. So the biggest thing we've talked about is this width, and that transforms the car here. Well, I'll be honest, the old C63 was effectively a two-door version of the sedan. The black was incredible, but that was more of like a hand-built one-off. With the combination of that width and the extra power, you don't feel any pitch, squat, dive, or roll. And granted, I'm in the Sport Plus mode. Here we get to this incredibly technical part, and notice the car isn't as disturbed as I change the plane of motion. That's really the important change here. So again, let's go through this nice little S here. Wow, this is awesome. And then I'm going to downshift getting in here. And notice what I've done here, I've spent a lot of time disturbing the plane of motion of the car, and you're not feeling either disturbance in power or the car going off in a direction like way over there. Like, check this one out. This turn, super sharp. If you get it wrong, you go way the hell off there. So let's go tight around here and come around a nice sweeper. God, man. It feels, I don't want to say telepathic. This is not a replacement to a Lotus, but it feels, it is an AMG that is just significantly more balanced. You don't feel as tail happy as you did in the old car, but the front end, you feel that stability of those bits that they've put underneath it.
And you thought we'd be done with the naked cars. So in the tech film, we talked about a number of body differences. Here in the body in white, you can see all of these differences. So a couple of changes. Number one, the entire structure of the vehicle. There are different materials used to increase the lateral strength of the car. So again, it goes back to, you want a car that goes around a corner faster, it needs to be stiffer. That's what this body in white shows. But more importantly, what it shows, we talked about the body panels that the C63 shares with the C300 Coupe, and that's three. It is the roof, the door panels, and the trunk. But notice the quarter panels here and the fenders here. Notice the extra width. To be very specific, it's 2.44 inches wider in the front and 2.59 inches wider in the rear. Now granted, that is to cover the extra suspension here, but also the tires are wider. It's like 11 inches wide in the rear and I think 10 in the front. But then that is not the only changes. Believe it or not, the hood is a bit longer, and then you've got the power bulge. Now, all of that sounds great, but really, how does that affect driving dynamics?
Mira, we couldn't come to southern Spain without checking out some of these stunning country roads. And coming out here, you notice, believe it or not, more than the track, the steering. So, number one, this is a wonderful place to live, and I thought the people in Tennessee had it figured out. I think these people have it figured out. Anyway, I digress. So, we've talked about the wider car, but we haven't talked about a shorter wheelbase, because by nature, it's a coupe, so it's not going to be as long as the sedan. So you put those two things together, you get a lot sharper steering. It's a faster turning, and that's just, basic physics there. Now, yes, you would get this benefit on the track, but frankly, you're so focused on getting around as efficiently as possible on the right line, as fast as possible, all the while keeping the shiny side up. Where here, you're in a more relaxed setting, you're like, wait a minute, there's something different up there. what exactly is it? And yes, you do notice the negative camber that we talked about in the C4. You get it here as well, but this has all of those extra changes that is not shared with the C450 that just makes the turn-in and the steering just much more direct. Now this is where the revised steering kind of, oh, that was fun. Talk about high limits of adhesion. And a little bit sideways there. Now that's the kind of fun we need to have, people. Okay, as we leave this cute little town and look at this stunning array of a road in front of us, there is one more thing I gotta geek out about. If you ask anybody that buys these cars why they buy them, I'm willing to bet you 99.9% of them say it's because of the way the car sounds. Now this has most everything in it. It doesn't have a sunroof, which you know is a thing I like, but it does have the performance exhaust fitted to it. So if the exhaust is not burly enough for you, doesn't sound exciting enough for you, you can have an adjustable baffle fitted to it to make yourself sound like more of a hooligan than you already are driving something like this.
So in summary, what do we got? In one word, changes. A hell of a lot of changes. Now, you and I did something different on this journey. You and I literally took apart every bit of this car. Hell, we even saw this car naked. But it wasn't until I put this car on the road and that amazing track that I really got it. Because when I rolled into this whole thing, I fully expected just a hot rod coupe. And now that I've kind of put it all together, it's not a hot rod version of a coupe version of a sedan. It, with all those bits in there and the changes, it's a performance car on its own right that is completely separate from the C Class that it spawned from. And really, what we need to do is put this off to the side and look at the overall landscape, because think about it. In the past year, you and I have driven two same kind of equation of this car. I would argue the Cadillac has the same kind of investment and changes like this, where the Lexus, it is a coupe version hot rod of a sedan. And really, it's very telling when you look at these and you compare the BMW against it as well. Think about the huge investment big companies like BMW, Toyota, General Motors, and now Mercedes is making into really a small, very niche segment, which then makes us stand back and look at this thing and say, is it a hot rod coupe that they're trying to create? Or are these companies now trying to create a lesser or more affordable halo car? So I'm going to turn the question around to you. Do you think this car, or even like the ATS-V or the BMW M4, have they kind of departed from the hot rod coupe formula that they used to be, or are they a halo car? Let me know yes, no, and why you think yes or no. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all in word, MotoManTV all in word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I want to leave you with two things. Once again, a gentle, friendly reminder to download our fancy new mobile app from the Apple iTunes Store and Google Play. And number two, I am going to be very sad to leave España.